I have a second channel, Cube Comp MTDX. Hey everybody. Some of you guys may recognize this clothes dryer if you've been watching my videos for at least the past year or so. A little over a year ago I got this dryer for free. It was abandoned and I saved it from, I guess I could say, certain death. The building it was in was about to get demolished. It's at the place I work at. I discovered this dryer when doing a video tour of the building for CubeComp MTDX. I got in touch with the facility services of the building and inquired about this dryer. The dryer was just sitting in a theater staging area. It was unplugged, hadn't been used in, geez, who knows how long. I assume the dryer was donated by somebody, probably. I think I know why they got rid of it too, and I'll talk about that in the video as well. So I brought this thing home, opened it up, cleaned it out, got all the junk out of it. Eventually did a full tear down of the thing, cleaned all the way up out inside the thing, removed a crap ton of bobby pins and what have you. And it would dry the clothes, but it would just take forever to do it. No airflow issues at all, at least with my venting system. It just goes right out the wall there. And I had replaced the cycling thermostat in the past on this thing. Didn't really make a difference. I actually did a temperature select switch delete, which removes it completely from the timer circuit. Essentially what this does, when you had this set down to like delicate or low or medium, it sends some power to the heater in the back of your cycling thermostat to make it cycle earlier to result in your dryer running at a lower temperature. So I pulled that out, no difference. So essentially, let me go and explain this a little bit better. So we're looking at the cycle options here, and this is the automatic dry setting. Normally, you would set it to energy preferred, and that would offer you plenty of run time to dry your clothes. And I'll talk about how this automatic dry works later on in this video. However, this timer would advance much too fast. And I noticed looking at the back of this thing, the heating element would cycle off way too early. Usually on electric dryers like this, that heater will run constantly until your clothes get to a certain temperature, which on the high setting, the cycling thermostat on this dryer cycles at roughly 150 degrees. And that's when your heating element will start to cycle and this timer will start to move. Essentially, that's kind of how the automatic cycle works. But this timer would advance much too quickly before the clothes were done. So it would complete the cycle and the clothes were still wet. Now, so I'd have to turn it all the way down to here, like where it begins the whole cycle, which is way past where you would normally set it to. And the dryer would take about, let's say, about 90 minutes or so to dry the clothes, and sometimes they still turned out a little bit moist. I was kind of aggravated with it, but I dealt with it for like the past year. Well, after working on a person's English dryer, which is a Whirlpool brand, after working on theirs, it finally motivated me to finally investigate the cause of the problem with this one. So, what I did to this dryer was I did two things. Well, three things actually. I reconnected the wires, the wiring harness for this switch to put it back in place. I also picked up some weather stripping seal, which is this stuff right here, because the previous foam gasket behind the lint filter box and the ducting that goes onto the blower, it was crumbling up. It wasn't really doing its job, and I was concerned that perhaps some air was getting sucked in through there instead of through the drum like it's supposed to be. So I changed that out, and also went ahead and changed out the high limit thermostat in this dryer. I used the one that came out of that Whirlpool dryer I used to have. It was a good part. So after I'd done that, I set I put in a load of clothes, full size, big load of clothes too. Set it to the energy preferred setting, started it, and you look behind here to watch the heating element. The heating element cycled on, and it stayed on. It didn't cycle like it used to. It stayed on and did not shut off until about 45 minutes in. Once the clothes reached 150 degrees, or at least once the air coming out of the dryer reached 150 degrees as measured with my thermometer, which I had outside on the exhaust fan out there. Once it got to that point, I came back in, and I waited, and I watched. And I heard the cycling thermostat pop, and the heating element went off. And about a minute or so later, it popped back on, and it started to cycle on, off, on, off. And that's when this timer started to advance. So I did shoot some video, or I attempted to do a video shot of me doing the repairs on this, but for one thing, I was exhausted, tired that night, and also the batteries went dead in my camera. And when the battery goes dead in this camera, instead of shutting the camera off, it just stops recording. And briefly says battery depleted, and it just sits there and stays on until for 10 minutes. So here I am thinking the camera's still recording, and it's not recording anymore. It's like, dadgum. Okay, so first, what we'll do is we'll go through the footage of me taking the back off this thing, taking the lint filter assembly off the back, and peeling off the old gasket material. And unfortunately, that's when the camera decided to quit recording. So anyways, here's that footage. Hey everybody. So it's been a little while since I've done a video on this dryer. If this is your first time seeing this clothes dryer, I got this thing a little over a year ago. It was in a building that was about to get demolished, and it was abandoned more or less. I found it in a room. It's a place that's at the place I work at. Found it in a certain room. It had been unplugged and not used, and who knows how long. And got in contact with the people in charge of the building. They said they don't know who they said I could have it, so I grabbed it. And of course, I have posted videos on this thing in the past. I'm having a minor issue with it. It doesn't prevent it from drying the clothes. It's just I replaced the cycling thermostat last year, and the reason why I replaced it is because when you set the automatic dry setting to the preferred or the more dry setting, and I should mention there's also some more space on the timer between the start and the end of that cycle. If I set it on normal dry or the energy preferred setting, the clothes turn out still wet. They still have moisture in them. And I notice it seems like when this thing starts out, the heating element kicks off earlier than I remember with my previous Whirlpool dryer. I don't think there's really an issue with the airflow, but there's a couple of things I'm going to be doing today. For one thing, I'm going to install new foam padding around the assembly where the lint filter goes into, as well as where the blower wheel is at. I do remember the foam material that was in there was getting deteriorated and probably wasn't sealing up as good as it should. So perhaps the fan could be sucking air from around the sides of this duct instead of from the inside of the drum. So my theory is perhaps the high limit thermostat might have been kicking out on the heater box. So actually, while I'm in here, I'm going to also change out the heating element and also the high limit thermostat and heater box thermal fuse from my Whirlpool dryer. because I know they were working just fine. So essentially, if you're just replacing the foam, the foam gasket between the I'll show you what it is once I get in here. If you're replacing the foam gasket material, a lot of times you can order online, but I noticed some sites like to mark it up. Well, I just went to Walmart and picked up this standard weather stripping seal. It's just it's a foam material with an adhesive backing. It's practically what is already in here. So, and that was like a couple of dollars or so at Walmart. It wasn't much at all. Maybe like $3 or so. Okay, so the dryer is unplugged. So we've got power isolated from it. So we'll need to get inside here. And this is a Whirlpool dryer, same as a Kenmore or a Roper or an Inglis or an Estate. Some Maytags also share this design. So very common dryer design. So first we'll start out by taking off the cover that covers up the terminal block. Since that will need to come off in order to gain access to the, in order to get this piece off. Other than that, this dryer has worked fine. I mean, it dries the clothes, it just takes a little bit longer to do so. Now we're going to lift this out of the way. Now we can see inside the dryer. This is an electric dryer, obviously, if you didn't know already. And of course, it could be a gas. And on a gas dryer, the gas burner is actually down here. So, just get an idea of how dirty it is in there, which ain't all that bad for a year of use, I guess. It's just me living here, so I probably do about 2 to 3 loads of clothes a month. So. Not too heavily used. Okay, so we got to take the lint filter out, and on top of this thing, you're going to have 2 screws inside the compartment where the lint filter goes. Those need to come out. Okay, since we're going to be replacing the gasket inside here, this piece here has to come off. This comes right out. And I'll show you why I'm doing this. So if we look, and of course there's got some mess in there I gotta clean out. To be honest, guys, it's not a bad idea just once in a while to take the back off your dryer or open your dryer up and just clean everything out. It's a really good idea to do so once in a while. Because you'd be amazed how quickly things will start to accumulate in here. You start to get a mess rather quickly. Let me go ahead and trash this. Okay, so I'm not sure how you can see from here, but this gasket has really deteriorated. It's falling apart more or less. And when it does that, it obviously just doesn't do as good of a job at sealing up. So there's two areas where you have this gasket. One side is around the blower wheel, which is right here, and the other one is right around this vent. You can see it's just crumbling apart. It's definitely not doing as good as it should. So we're going to go ahead and peel that off of there, and we're going to replace it. And so we'll try to make sure we get all this old material off for as much as we can. That way the new adhesive backing has something good to adhere to. I mean, if there's some left over, it shouldn't be too big of a deal, but we do want to try to get off of there as much as we can. And we got to do the same down here as well. And it's just, I mean, it's just falling right off. Matter of fact, I think originally it was the foam, at least down here, was stuck onto the, well, you can't really tell for certain which side it was hooked, which side it was stuck to. But when we go to install the new material, we'll wrap it around the fan assembly. I mean, this stuff is just falling right off. It's deteriorated past its prime. Now, as I mentioned, the heater box does not have this material, and it shouldn't. Obviously, the heater box gets really hot, especially in the case of electric dryer. Your heating element is right down here. Okay, so the next footage that you'll get to see is after I had completed the gasket installation, and that was when I realized that the camera had stopped recording long before. So let me take a moment to talk about this weather stripping seal, and I did talk about it a little bit in the video, but essentially you can go online and order these you can go online and order the foam seal that goes around the area where the ductwork, or the box that this filter goes in, meets up with the back of the drum, where the vent is for the drum as well as for the fan. You actually have two gaskets. And I had done a simple search online in the appliance parts stores and Amazon. I think Amazon too. They wanted a ridiculous amount of money for this stuff, and it was exactly the same as this right here. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to Walmart and see what they have for weather stripping or weather strip seal, and it's exactly this. I'd say it's exactly the same thing as what they actually put in these things. It's just single-sided foam seal. And then pull it out of the bag. Okay, I know there was one that I already started on. Okay, here it is. So essentially, it has this paper stripping on the back. One side, this side here, is not sticky, whereas this side is sticky. So yeah, it's exactly the same material. So what you would do is you would peel this material. You'll peel the, and you'll need a pair of scissors, by the way, to cut this when you do a complete loop around of the material. You would just peel this paper back as you stick this to the surface, and you actually want to stick it onto the. So, to better explain, on both gaskets, I stuck it to the surface where the ducting meets up with the back of the drum assembly. I didn't stick this on the duct assembly itself, but rather the drum assembly itself. And the other side, the other part, I just did a loop around the fan. So as you're installing this again, you're peeling this back, you're sticking it on, and once you get done, you trim it with the scissors, and that's it. So here's the footage of where I completed that. Okay, so this is the final product. This is wrapping around the fan, and this is wrapping around this vent. You can see I overlap these just a little bit there on both of them. You don't want there to be a gap between the ends. You just want them to overlap just a little bit. That way you get a good even seal. Okay, so essentially after I did the gasket replacement, I was exhausted, and I apologize I didn't continue the video on. I just wanted to get the dryer back together and that way I could dry my clothes. So I figured I'd take this opportunity to talk about the heating element and everything. So I did not actually replace the heating element. The heating element in that dryer was fine. Essentially, I mean, if it's not touching up against this metal and there's no broken spots in the heater element, it's fine. This heating element should measure 10 ohms. That's the typical resistance of these elements. This is the of course for the electric dryer. Very common. This is pretty much the typical heating element you'll find in most of these Whirlpool dryers. This is the one that came out of the Roper dryer, by the way. So when you're looking in the back of your dryer, it's mounted up against the drum frame. So let's say to the left is where your duct work for your lint filter and stuff. It's over on this side. Your heater's down here, and there's another duct that goes between the heater and the back of the dryer. So you have this high limit thermostat, which goes. I'm just going to stick it on, just as a reference, and I'm not going to stick it all the way on. But your high limit thermostat will be located right here, and there is this spade terminal you have to pull off. So you have one of your electrical connections goes up here, and your other electrical connection goes right here, and you have this third one on some dryers. I think some of the dryers don't have this. So you pull those off, and this assembly comes right out. Now some Whirlpool dryers have this as the high limit thermostat, and there's a funny story about this high limit thermostat too. So I did not replace the thermal fuse on that Whirlpool dryer because there was nothing wrong with the fuse. It was getting continuity. I was getting heat. Since it's a one-shot device, obviously it was working fine. But if it was bad, I would have had to order one, because guess what? Whoever repaired my late grandmother's Whirlpool dryer that I used for a couple of years here, instead of when they service the dryer, instead of replacing the high limit thermostat with a high limit thermostat and the thermal fuse with a thermal fuse, they replaced both the high limit thermostat and the thermal fuse with, guess what? 2 high limit thermostats. So you had the actual high limit thermostat, which again, as I mentioned, there's 2 different versions, and this was mounted up in the area where the thermal fuse is supposed to go. And I looked up this part number, and it is not a thermal fuse. It is a high limit thermostat. That could have gotten ugly, because the thermal fuse is supposed to be there for in the case where the high limit thermostat fails to operate. So if both these were to fail, well, the heater would just run until the dryer caught on fire. So it's probably a good thing I got rid of that Whirlpool dryer. So yeah, I changed this out, and and this is actually the bad one. This is the one that came out of the Whirlpool dryer. The one that came off the Whirlpool dryer is in that dryer, in the Whirlpool dryer right now. So this is what the high limit thermostat looks like. Again, you have 2 versions. You could have this one, or you could have this one. Real easy to change out. So from my own experience, if your dryer is taking longer than usual to dry your clothes, and you verify that you got good airflow, check the gasket in your dryer, make sure it's good, and if it's not good, replace it. And I forgot to mention earlier that, and also I think I forgot to mention in my video, after you change out that gasket and you put that duct assembly back onto the dryer, just look over and make sure the gasket has a uniform seal around the perimeter of the connections, because you don't want to have gaps in there. And also, I should mention, if I didn't mention already in any of the video clips, you do not want to use that weather stripping on any part of this heater assembly, because it would catch fire, obviously. This heater gets very hot. The heater does not have any sort of gasket seal between the inlet to the drum and the heater box. I mean, it's just, they couldn't do it because of the high temperatures this thing sees. But that's that. So if your dryer is not getting the clothes dry, or it takes forever to dry clothes, and you verified that you're getting good airflow and your gasket's okay, change out your cycling thermostat and your high limit thermostat. Just change them both. Matter of fact, a lot of times when you buy these on Amazon, a lot of times they will sell the high limit thermostat, the cycling thermostat, the blower thermal fuse, as well as the heater thermal fuse as a kit for probably less than $20. I mean, these parts are really cheap. And that should get your dryer back up and running like it's supposed to be. So, if I didn't really discuss much about the cycling thermostat, this is the cycling thermostat. Now, this one actually came out of a frigid air dryer, is actually compatible with the Whirlpool. This one cycles at a lower temperature. This one cycles at 140. I think the Whirlpool cycles at 150 or 155. One of those temperatures. So exactly same part. It just cycles earlier. Inside here is a thermal disc. Once it reaches a certain temperature, that disc will pop, and it opens a circuit, disconnecting power to your heater. And the way this also works is when this cycles, and also in the case of this dryer, when the high limit thermostat opens up, it will allow the timer when it's on the automatic dry setting. It allows the timer to actuate and move. So when you're using the automatic dry setting, when the cycling thermostat is closed and allowing your heater to operate, that timer does not move. But when this pops and opens up, the heater shuts off and the timer advances until this cools down and pops back in, and the heater comes on and the timer stops. So that's how the that's essentially how the automatic dry function works on the good majority of dryers. Now, the newer ones that have electronics in them, that's a little bit different story. But I'm talking about your simple dryers that just use these thermostats to do their thing. So I understand this probably is not the best video, but I just wanted to have a little chat about how I got my dryer working like it's supposed to. I mean, it worked perfectly. The clothes were perfectly dry. And I must say, one more thing I want to mention is I did notice with the Whirlpool dryer up until I got it fixed perfectly. On cold nights, the dryer exhaust outside, you never saw steam. You know, typically with the dryer, once it gets going, on a cold night, your dryer exhaust outside, you'll see steam because, of course, the moisture from your clothes is escaping outside, and of course, it's like blowing. It's like breathing outdoors when it's cold. You can see your breath. Pretty much the same thing. Except what was going on is the heating element was cycling off too early and never really getting the air inside the dryer all that hot. So that's why it took longer for the dryer to do its thing. And also that's why the timer advanced too early or too prematurely. So anyways, that is pretty much the story behind that dryer. I tell you, I procrastinated for so long to actually repair it. I mean, the actual repair, I can't say for sure that the gasket really had all that much to do with it. It may have had more to do with just the high limit thermostat. I mean, these things sometimes they can stick closed, and that's when your thermal fuse will blow. But sometimes when they wear out, they can cycle too early and cause your essentially cause your heating element to shut off and not allow the cycling thermostat to do its thing. Because the cycling thermostat is supposed to do its own thing, and in the case where either the cycling thermostat is tucked closed, or you run the dryer with the door open and your heat is running, and you overheat your heater, that's when this will operate. So that is kind of the story behind the dryer and how I finally got it working right. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Well, everybody, that's it for this video, but don't forget there's a lot more interesting stuff on the channel to check out. Also, if this is your first time visiting this channel, feel free to subscribe to keep your channel, and also don't forget to tick the bell so that way we get notified of new video posts. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, but if you really didn't like it, there is the alternative option available as well. Also, feel free to check out my second channel, CubeComp MTDX. There you'll find videos about bicycling, weather, elevator tours, and all sorts of other neat, interesting stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to come back, and thank you for your support.